Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's 3:31 p.m. I'm calling this meeting of the Maple Broadband Executive Committee to order for October 3rd, 2024. So the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda that was distributed to you.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, any comments or requested changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the agenda, raise your hand or say aye. Okay, you've got an agenda. Next up is approval of the minutes from September 19th. So you've all had a chance to review those minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Okay, any discussion of the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes, raise your hand or say aye. Okay, and Nancy, you're abstaining, are you?
Yes.
All right, minutes are approved. Thank you. So next up is public comment. Would anyone like to make a public comment? Okay, hearing none, moving right on. Executive Director report. So a couple of things. I sent everyone a mail that we have received our our mission completed form from Luck Grove that we've completed successfully with flying colors, I might add, our phase 1 inspection. They didn't find a single thing wrong with our outside plant. There were a couple of splices that needed to be respliced, and we didn't catch that earlier just because of the manner in which Mission was doing its reviews. So that should also be reduced going forward. So that's great. Other than that, no surprise to all of you because you're all in the loop. But my big focuses that I've been busy with all of this week is really three things. So one is working on the budget for next year. So I've been deep into the GIS analysis of that. Noah did some really great work in QGIS to help calculate all the stats that I need, but the downside is that the processing is quite slow. So it's taking longer than it ideally would, but there we are. But I'm mostly done now, so the end is in sight, and then from there I can tally up capital budget items and start to get to the fun bits of what's going to be in the budget, and then also make some updated projections on the financial model so that we can start to project out a little bit more accurately our revenues. So I'd hope to be done by now. I'm not done by now, but I will definitely be done by the governing board meeting, so we'll have something solid that we can review. So that's that. The second thing that's been consuming time is the BEAD request for applications draft was published by the VCBB last week. So it's, how many pages long is it, just out of curiosity? A lot of pages long. 49 pages long, although some of those are cover pages and whatnot, but it's a very dense document, so I've been through it, and as Vacuda, we have a long list of comments that we're going to be submitting, and per guidance from VCBB, they request that if the same entities, or sorry, if entities have comments, that they be submitted as many times as possible, essentially, so they can compile a frequently asked questions. Because there is probably a top 10 list of really critical either changes that we think should be made in compliance with uniform guidance or NTIA guidance or general, or things that are unclear, that remain unclear. So I'm going to be compiling Maple Broadband feedback on that probably on Monday once I finish with the budget. So that, but I think the good news is that Fukuda does now know what we're going to be commenting on that, and went through and prioritized them this morning, and staff is busy working on that. So there's work to be done still, but a lot of that's behind me. And then the final thing is assisting Sai with the audit, which has its whole agenda item. So that is really my key focus for the next week. Just as a heads up to you all, because I'm not sure if I've told everyone or anyone or none of you, but next week I'm going to be traveling to Washington, D.C. for a conference on behalf of Vacuda. So from Wednesday through Thursday and Friday, I'll be at the conference. Wednesday, I'll be having some conference activities, but mostly working. And so when I attend the governing board meeting Tuesday, it'll be from a hotel. Hopefully the Wi-Fi will work. So that's it for me. Any questions about me and what's going on? Nope. Okay. Great. Moving on. So 5A audit update. Si, would you like to give an audit update? This feels like the gift that keeps giving.
It's an endless new and exciting thing. Yeah, Ellie saw the note that I got, and I don't know if it was Monday morning or Tuesday morning. This week has been a little wacky with umpteen more questions, requests, details, some of which are rather complex, some of which are relatively simple. So I'm pecking through the complex. I got rid of all the simple stuff. Now I'm working my way through her more complicated questions, which led to questions for the auditor, and I haven't heard back from her. And it's complicated by the fact that I too am disappearing. I have a new grandbaby that I'm going to go visit in Wisconsin, and leaving on Tuesday. So I'm going to work my way through as far as I can, but and we'll work on it while I'm there if I don't get stuff done before I go. Especially if I don't hear back from Bonnie, that may be a conversation I end up having with her while I'm in Wisconsin. So while I thought we were within spitting distance, I think we're not necessarily within spitting distance because there are 2 or 3 kind of just big complicated things that have to be tidied up, and it's driving me crazy, but it will happen. I will hang in there until that sucker is finished.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Well, the good news, if there is such a good news, but the silver lining is that we're having our heads so much in this audit world, and then the preparation for BEAD has been a little bit easier because we've already been thinking about some of these things like depreciation and asset capitalization and so on. And I'm also thinking that now, once I get the financial modeling and GIS work and budget draft done, then I can do what I've been saying I'd be able to do for a while now. And since Q3 has just closed, work on the first 3 quarters of this year with it all being fresh in the head, because a good chunk of it is done already that I did earlier, but it would be good to get that done so we can get a head start on next year's audit.
Can I
Knock
ask a
on wood.
question, Ellie or Si?
Mhm.
And it's, what's the nature of all of her questions? Is it just technical audit stuff, or is there some financial discrepancy that we should be worried about?
There are numbers that aren't matching. I think they're not things we have to be worried about, but for instance, the newest and most exciting was going through and matching the reported amount on our ledger reports to VCBB versus what shows up on our P&L from time in memoriam. And there are discrepancies, and some of them are simply because we changed how we, as you remember, well, maybe you don't, beginning of 24, we really sort of changed a lot of our ledger lines to more accurately reflect what we were paying for. But we didn't go back through 3 years worth of ledger reports and change them around. So we have, a construction bottom line that is a minus number. We have a pre-construction line that is a plus number. So I just need to pick through it and make sure that 90% of that is simply recategorizing, and hopefully that is enough to make Bonnie's little heart stop going pitter pat. The other is more an audit pickiness, which is inventory and how we've journaled things. And the last big piece that we just have to get into place is still our network asset, capitalized assets. And again, some of this is pending because I have asked on a couple of occasions now, because I know she doesn't want us messing with the 23 books. So it's a question of, we have numbers. Do you want us to make journal entries, or are we sending you those figures, making sure you're happy with them, and then having, permission to go make journal entries? So it's a little bit of both, Adam, but mostly we're down in the weeds in a very big way. I don't think there's any question that our numbers are wrong. It's a matter of making sure they're reported in the right places to be tidy at the bottom.
Thank you.
Good summary. I would agree with that.
Pain in the ass, though. Don't put that in the minutes.
Yes. Well, anyway, here we are. It is our first. Is this our first single audit, or was 22 a single audit? I can't recall.
22 is a single audit, but we didn't have very much income to talk about, and we didn't have much in the way of assets to talk about. So 23 has been a gigantic vavoom in terms of figures and more complicated things that we didn't have to deal with in 22.
Yeah, and 24 is going to be even more fun because of all of the 85 gazillion invoices from Syracuse.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it. Okay, any other questions on the audit? Okay, the draft annual report. So I sent you guys a draft annual report along with the board pack, and I would love to hear any feedback, comments, anything you have for me. You'll have a chance again at the governing board meeting, but I figured may as well, since it was ready, may as well circulate.
I have a question. I just, but I think you just answered it. The main audience for this is the governing board, right?
The main audience of this is a statutory requirement that the district needs to distribute to its member towns before the end of the year 3 things. One is a budget for the next year. The second is a pro forma through the end of the current year. And a third is an annual report of its activities. So we need to distribute those. And then in November, we have a public meeting as part of our, prior to our governing board meeting. I suppose it could be after. We've always done it prior. And in that public hearing, I suppose, members of the public can come and comment on the materials we've distributed to their towns.
Okay. So that clarifies that, and that clarifies, I guess, what my next question would be anyway. What more could we say about the part of Addison County that is about the build in the part of Addison County that is WCVT's territory? Could we mention miles in WCVT towns? Could we, what could we say, since it's going to all of our member towns? What else could we say?
Yes,
Well,
just quickly on that.
Okay, you got it. Sorry.
I have asked Roger for a statement. We had one bullet last year, and I sent it to him, and I said it would be good to have a couple more sentences this year, please. So he said he's going to get me something.
Just by the way, a neighbor of mine in Starksboro was raving about the fact that his road has now been built. It's a very remote road in Starksboro, and I mean, he remembers having his kids be happy that television was being run on the car battery. So, and his kids are grown-ups now. So anyway, he's thrilled and he can't wait to get installed. And I just think the WCVT towns that where there is building happening, it would be great to say that and to note the mileage.
And that was to go to my question as well. I know that they were supposed to keep within 10% of the same rate that we're building, and just wondering if they're keeping up on that.
Not sure. It's a good question. I guess we'll see what their number is, because they do report. Let's just, since we're talking about it, let me just pull up the biannual report that we had at the governing board. 2024 Q3. It doesn't have miles, this report. It has addresses passed. And I'd have to have a look at our agreement to see if the count was keeping up in terms of miles or keeping up in terms of addresses passed. You're muted. Not that it matters much in any event, because it's not like the agreement had any or else. So if they don't do it, we ask them nicely if they can hurry up or something, I guess. So
Wasn't I thought the stipulation was in regards to a lot of the grants, the initial grants we got for 8 million, that they had to also no.
No, we supported them getting their own direct $9 million grant from the VCBB with its own terms and conditions. They don't report to us on that in any way, shape, or form.
So what was where did the rule that I'm thinking of come from? That they had to maintain 90% of our build rate or something like that?
It's in our network management agreement. It says that, but like I said, there's not really any teeth in it. So if they don't, we can sit down and talk to them about it.
They were way ahead of us though at the beginning, Ellie.
It depends on how you start counting, right? Where in time you start counting.
Yeah, it depends on where, because I mean, yeah, we started with 0 and they had 1388. We now have at the end of Q2 we had 2875 and they had 4634. So they were still ahead of us.
So
In
I'm
fact,
hoping that the bullets, the additional information they provide will go beyond the end of 2023.
Well, yes,
Because
that's
we because
the idea. Sorry.
because this is meant to be a report up until October 1st, 24, right?
Well, I've actually interpreted it a bit more liberally than that because we'll send out a draft now, but I have some forward-looking statements in there about something or other. I
Yeah.
forget what. I think maybe the number. I think the towns where we have service because we don't yet have service in. Oh no, we do actually. We have service in. I'm lying anyway, but I had 1 or 2 forward-looking statements in there, which are things that I'm 99% sure will be true by the end of the year. So it's meant to be an annual report for 2024, not for 2023.
Okay. And I would only also say that just a couple of one minor thing is that where are we? Oh, sorry. Let me find it. Oh, on the page before the map, I think it's the third to last paragraph. So 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph on that page ends with the word underserved, which is highlighted in the copy I'm looking at. And I think you mean the remaining underserved addresses, households, whatever it is. It just seems ending with the word underserved seems abrupt.
Oh, that's a good point.
And my only other thing is I tried to zoom in on
Addresses.
the map and I couldn't, so it's hard for me to comment on that.
Well, the map. So I sent out, and I suppose this is a computer thing because I sent out a version of. I sent this out in Microsoft PowerPoint, which is the version that's Pivot helped us with last year.
Yeah.
And I highlighted some things, and what shows us highlighted on your computer is different than what I had meant to highlight. And then I think you also didn't see the comment because, for example, I highlighted on the first page the bullet for Waitsfield to update, and I put in the comments to be updated.
I do see that now.
And there's a comment on the map as well, which is it's to be updated because that's the 2023 progress report. We need to redo the whole map. I've already spoken to London Middlebury about it.
Okay, great.
So I think for the purposes of what we distribute to our member towns by the end of October, the governing board should really be approving the copy to make sure we have the basics right. And then if we have an updated map by the end of October, that's great. If we don't, we can send it out without the map as an annual report. And then there's nothing that says that we can't enhance our annual report with more detailed information, but we shouldn't be changing our story.
What we've done in the past too is because we send to each town our annual report, a version of our annual report to be included in town reports. And we've been restricted to, I think, I don't know what, half a page or something. So, but what's here is what we base it on. So that's very helpful to us for that purpose as well.
Yep. And what we'll put in our final end of year newsletter and.
Yep.
Okay. So anything else on the annual report?
I guess I don't know if you'd put this in the annual report, but when you think about that, and this is really maybe also a budget question, when you think about that 3 million in debt, what that will let us finish our build to the underserved addresses, right?
The 3 million in debt is it's primarily to let us build to the addresses that aren't eligible under any grants. So the areas that have only cable but no fiber.
Okay.
Those are not considered to be underserved by either the NTIA or the state of Vermont.
So, it will be Bede Bede will be restricted to the underserved. And with the additional 3 million, we'll be able to go back to places that already have service from something else. All of them, or
I have
well,
cable.
that have cable. So as a district, we can take on as much debt as we think is feasible and do whatever we want.
yeah,
What we have decided in the past is that our plan is to make sure that every on-grid address has access to fiber. And so we are not at this point planning to overbuild every single address that has access to fiber from someone. If we didn't get there first, we're going to let it be and wait and see.
okay. So would it help to make clearer in the report what the 3 million, or is it clear? I guess, is it clear enough what the 3 million will pay for? That's my question.
In my mind, it is because the first sentence, certain portions of our district are not eligible for us to build under either grant program. To ensure that fiber is available in these areas, that's what the 3 million is for.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's
I see.
highlighted because I'm not sure the amount. It was 3 million last year, and I'm busy updating to see what it is. Could
Okay.
be 2.5, could be 4.
Okay. All right then. That's it for me.
Okay. All right. So, anyone else? Okay. So the next item then is the draft 2025 budget and pro forma. So let me get that up as well. We can all have a look at it. So the caveat on this one in my mail is, as I said earlier, I'm still not done with the capital budget. So all these items that are in red are ones that I'm still busy with.
Ellie, just going back just a quick second, the map says 23. Is that
Yep.
accurate?
That was from last year's annual report.
Okay, that's last year's annual's report. So you're going to replace it with a new map. I'm
Correct.
sorry, I might have missed something.
No worries.
Okay. And we did that for you.
Yes.
Are we doing it for you again?
I think London Middlebury will. If they have any issues doing it, then I will reach out and let you know.
Okay.
Thank you for the offer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so any thoughts on the budget? The pro forma we discuss every single month at the governing board meeting, and it was practically the same as it was last month, so I can't imagine you have any comments on that. Because we were just busy still with the, shouldn't say still, it's only the 3rd of the month, but we haven't quite gotten the dashboard out yet to be able to have an updated pro forma, but I will be updating the pro forma to be in line with the actuals through the end of Q3 before sending it out.
And those actuals are now tidy. And in the dashboard, the draft that I sent out to you today, I double checked to make sure we got our interest numbers and stuff from bank statements in place. So
Great.
It should be good.
I'm going to get to that first thing tomorrow morning.
So I have a question about the title pro forma. That's been a new, it's been a relatively new term to me. What do we mean? Do we actually mean 2024 anticipated, or do we mean 2024 actuals?
It's anticipated actuals because we have to submit this before the end of the year, but the year hasn't finished yet.
Okay.
So the pro forma is our district's best guess as to what the end of year 2024 numbers are going to be.
Well, I wonder if I may not be the only person for whom pro forma isn't as clear as it might be in explaining what that column means. And I wonder if anticipated actuals does it for me.
Or we can call it projections. which is all that it really is.
Okay. I think that would help clarify.
That okay?
So Ellie, I guess my biggest question would be you're borrowing 3 million, you've got construction labor costs of 4.5 million, and you're coming up with a net loss of 2.8 or no.
I haven't done the capital budget or the debt part yet.
Okay. So you just want us to look at the operating expenses and the operating income?
Yes. Yeah, the things that are in black and not red.
Okay. There's some big numbers in red, Ellie.
Yeah, I know.
It's
Yeah, basically I started with the operating expenses because that was the straightforward thing, and then the GIS analysis I'm busy with now is sorting out into all of the different chunks of what's what. So just to show you some of the fun that we have going on, this is a portion of Leicester, and this pink is what we're busy building right now, and blue is areas that aren't eligible under any grant. This sort of brick colored is bead, and then these are the bead middle mile where we can pay for the we can pay for the middle mile to get to the bead areas, but we can't pay for any of the distribution fiber or splicing. So I literally have to go into a program, draw up the polygons like this, spit out. So I mean I've now finished this analysis, and at the same time I updated the crowd fiber online to reflect the reality of what's actually getting built in some areas. Like all of these, for example, now have fiber from Fidium, and they're not needed for bead, so we're not going to build them. So I've done those updates on crowd fiber, which is useful, but I'm still waiting for the QGIS to spit out all of the numbers here so that I can add it up and figure out what's the grand total for bead versus bead middle mile versus things with private funding. So I'm 90% of the way there, but like I said earlier, the fact that the calculations are great, but I guess I just need a faster computer. I thought I had a pretty fast computer, but apparently it's not fast enough because every single polygon takes about, I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes for the processing to run in the background to be able to get the information that I need to be able to plug into the model later. So it's kind of annoyingly and frustratingly slow, and that's why I'm not done by now. It's not that the analysis isn't done, it's that the tools are simply not as fast as I'd like them to be. But almost there. So I'll send that out to the governing board as soon as I'm done with it, which hopefully will be tomorrow. And then we can all review it before the governing board meeting.
So are you looking to create a balanced budget?
No,
Okay.
I don't think we've ever had a balanced budget, have we?
No,
Well, we've always had
but we've always
excess.
had money.
We've
Yeah,
always
we've
had
always had
money.
money. Yeah.
So I don't know how much money we'd have left after this one. That shows, right now it's $250,000 under.
So this is not your latest September side, but this is probably close enough for discussion purposes. So our anticipated, and not all this is cash. Well, I mean that's cash, year-end cash, and then that's year-end money available. So I suppose you could take this 3.5 million as money available
At the moment, yeah.
at the moment.
And we have our projected expenses through the end of the year, which is what we were just talking about.
Yeah. So this is going to go down to zero, but it's these numbers here. So we have about 3 million left in construction, and then 700,000 left in ARPA construction. So 3.7 million left. Is that right?
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, minus the, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's more than that. So like we have about 3.5 million, 3.4 million left in construction and pre-construction funding. And we obviously can't use pre-construction funding on construction. So the balance and I think that we've talked about this before. I'm not sure if you were on the call, Adam, but the reality of the matter is that even if we're successful in BEAD, we're not going to get our grant paperwork for about a year from now. And so what we're actually looking to do next year is these fun things over here in, well, the blue things that don't need the brick and the teal things to get to them, which there's actually not too many down in this area. There's more of them over in our phase 1 area, filling in some of the Swiss cheese holes, but a lot of them are up here. So we're looking to do those, and then depending on the answer about their pre-award expenditures, hopefully we can start doing some of this BEAD work and charge it to the grant, like the middle mile work, and launch those and pay for the drops off them and the splicing with private money. But that's probably the hardest thing, because with all of the scope of BEAD, most of that is not going to get spent next year because it simply can't be.
Because you won't have it yet.
Because we won't have it yet, and we also don't even understand what the BEAD program is going to look like in terms of when we get our money, because the RFA, that's one of the comments, is it's a little bit inconsistent. We're pushing for what the NTIA is pushing for, which is called fixed subawards, which is basically a lot like ARPA. You get a grant for X, call it 10 million, you build what you say you're going to build, and then there's milestones. And the first milestone could be signature. The second milestone could be getting all of your permitting. The third milestone could be completing your design, whatever it is. But it's because that's the other thing as well, is that if BEAD is done on a fully reimbursement basis, then we're going to be constrained by our working capital. So it'll take longer to build the thing. So there's a lot of unknowns right now. So I think my capital plan is essentially going to be building all these things that don't have any constraints, and then making some assumptions about getting into BEAD. And it's probably going to wind up being a more conservative budget than what we actually wind up doing if things in the RFA, if we're successful in BEAD, and if things in the RFA stack up the way that we want, and if the timelines aren't pushed out too much further.
Are we ready to bring a budget to the governing board next week?
We will be ready. Ideally, we'd have more time. It's unfortunate that our governing board meeting is so early in the month. Under statute, we're required to distribute something to our member towns by the end of the month, and I don't really want to call a special board meeting.
So we just need to make very clear that this is a draft.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is, but it's actually not going to change that much, I don't think, unless, well, it might change if we get more clarity on BEAD rules. But even still, it's probably not going to change too much, because we're not going to get our BEAD award until the fourth quarter if we're successful. And so that constrains what we can realistically, actually, practically do, because the fourth quarter is also the end of construction season. Right? I mean, there's some things you can do, but it's not the optimal time to be going out there and efficiently spending money.
I think
Any
it's a
more
budget
thoughts?
that's as close as it can be, given the scope of the questions that we can't answer. So I think there's a great deal of, and Ellie's done a good job, and any numbers that you want to get really picky that you can really have an effect on, most of them are very small. So you're looking at the really big numbers, and even if they adjust one way or another by, X number of percentage points, we're still going to be, one hopes, in the right arena. So I think as a draft budget, particularly not knowing what we need to know from BEAD and trying to finish up all of the work that you're doing, Ellie, with the with what's available, what we can do with the money that we have, that this is impressively close for a draft, I think. We could still be surprised in December, but I think it's as close as it can be. It's you can fuss around with, can we change our shipping costs, but it's not going to have the effect that the big red numbers will have in the end.
Yeah. And I think to Nancy's point, the point of this is to circulate a budget for discussion purposes. And we changed it, I don't want to say extremely dramatically, but we definitely changed it between October and December of last year, because you get more information as the year goes on, especially with a program the size of BEAD with as many unknowns as are unknown today on October 3rd. So, and when we distribute to the towns, we can of course just be clear, this is a draft budget, there's a lot of things in play.
I think the other thing that makes it as vibrant and vital and as close as it can be at this point is the fact that you've spent as much time looking at what we actually did or did not do in 24, so that this projection is based on a projection from July, and that also makes a huge difference in looking at numbers and being as realistic as you can be with the information that you have.
Yep. Yeah, that's one thing that our updated dashboard has made doing the pro forma significantly easier, because last year that was a mission to try and sit down and figure out how much money we were going to spend before the end of the year, and now it's just all there because we do it every month. So it's actually really, so that's nice. Okay, well, if anything occurs to you on further review, but I think mainly the review will come when you get the one that has the capital budget items filled in. And then we'll talk at the governing board on Tuesday. Okay, parking lot. I just wanted to update everyone on the parking lot that Steve and I have been having discussions both with the school district. Thank you, Carl, for getting Matt to respond, because once he responded, he's been very responsive, so that's great. Both with the school district and with the town of Middlebury. So there were some very productive site visits Tuesday, before Steve left. So we will keep you informed as we get closer to final candidate locations. But I'm feeling quite encouraged by the fact that we have some very good sites and some very positive conversations. Any questions on that, or anything on the parking lot anyone else wants to discuss? Okay. So moving on, marketing updates. I don't have too much of a marketing update right now. There's a lot of keeping the trains running. You will have seen the newsletter that went out at the end of the month. You may have also seen there was a survey that was put out that was referenced in the newsletter, and there's a special separate email about the survey that just went out today. This is part of the market research the London Middlebury is doing. And we had a meeting last week with WCVT to go over all of the logic of the automated customer service emails and when they get triggered, at what point in crowd fiber. And there was a couple of exception cases that I'd missed in my review with London Middlebury, but Waitsfield pointed out. So they've been doing a little bit more work there to get those automations set up. And I don't yet have a date for when we're going to launch that. I imagine they will update me very shortly on that. But that's about it for marketing. Any questions, concerns?
Looks like great work. Just great work.
Thank you. I continue to be very pleased working with them. Okay. So BEAD, obviously you know that the RFA is out. There is a new schedule. There's actually a new schedule from the one that was in the RFA that I was looking at, because they updated it to correct the NEK-CV being one territory. So I think the timeline's pushed out a little bit from this, but I haven't downloaded it yet. But the key thing that I'm focused on is the pre-proposal window, which opens October 24th and closes November 5th. And what the requirements are for the pre-proposal window, which is fairly lightweight. I think the most substantive thing in the pre-proposal window is that we are allowed to request changes to the project area. And I'm going to share my screen again. And they've given some examples of why you might request changes to a project area. So some of them might be, for example, if there was an address which was part of a pole shed that just happens to fall into another town that we can more cost effectively serve potentially, then we might include something like that. I mean, there was a case like this down here where the most cost effective way to get to these addresses was to go down through Benson. So we did that, but we don't have any cases like that. So the part that I'm most interested in is we're allowed to request a modification of the project area. And the project area is the boundaries of our district, but we can request essentially carving things out. And so these pink push pins, the pink and purple push pins, are the bead addresses following the NTIA's challenge process. So one of the changes, once we get through the comments, I'm going to reread this part more particularly, but what I think I'm going to do is to request a modification to our project area to remove, for example, these areas, because these are not legitimate BSLs. These are hunting camps. I don't know what the heck this is, but I don't think it's a real BSL. It's probably also a hunting camp. There's some other examples of like this thing over here down in the Salisbury Swamp. I think that's Salisbury, or maybe it's the Cornwall Swamp. It's the wrong side of the railroad tracks. There's not even any roads that lead to it. I don't know what on earth they think it is. So there's a process, as you all know. I mean, you're all aware of this challenge with the fabric, where there's these BSLs that are not real BSLs, and no one wants to be building fiber to nowhere because that's silly. So there's a couple of different routes to get them removed, but the first and easiest route is simply to carve them off and to say, we don't think these are legitimate BSLs. We've challenged them with the FCC. Here is our evidence. We want to modify our project area to remove them. And if the VCBB agrees with our evidence, they'll become not our problem, and they'll become the VCBB's problem to deal with, either to deal with the NTIA to get them waived or to have them as an alternate technology like Starlink or something like that. So that's the pre-proposal. The other thing I should say, just for the purposes of full disclosure, is of course our district is shared with Waitsfield, and we've been talking all along about we're going to have a shared bead bid. So I went through with Roger. Roger has read the RFA as well, and we're jointly compiling the things, because there's some things that they want to comment on because they have areas that fall outside of our district that we don't necessarily care to comment on. But I'm sharing with him the top 10 or 15 or 20 things that I'm going to be submitting comment on, which has a large overlap with what Fukuda is going to be submitting comment on, so that he can submit his own comments, because as previously mentioned, the VCB has explicitly requested as many parties as possible that have the same question or concern, please to submit it, number one. And number two, it's good not just to hear the same things from CUDs, but to hear them from the private companies as well. So that is BEAD. Anything on BEAD? It's finally ramping up. Okay, so that's that. Next thing up is VCBB. So there are two things about the VCBB. The first one is, for those of you who did not attend the VCBB special meeting on Monday, there was some very surprising news, which is that Holly Groschner resigned her position on the board. Nancy, I'm guessing you didn't hear that from other channels. Yeah, Holly Groschner resigned her position on the board effective after that meeting, and so.
Why? Do you know why?
She said all good things have to come to an end, and I forget what else she said. I was more just, having one of those moments. But I'm sure the recording is up or will be up soon. But I think it's yeah, she I guess felt like she could be more useful in other areas, and maybe some fresh blood. I don't know. I don't really remember what she said. I was more interested in the oh wow. So the appointment the appointment of that role is done by the Speaker of the House, or the House. I'm not actually sure how that even works in the off session, but anyway, that's not my problem to worry about. So Holly has apparently suggested a couple of candidates to the Speaker, and in due course we will find out who the next VCBB board member is. So that's a pretty substantial change. Just wanted to let you guys know. And the second thing is we are going to be on the agenda at the next VCBB board meeting as Maple Broadband because we need to request a small grant, a small amendment to our construction grant. The reason being that we haven't gotten there yet, but we're anticipating completing our grant obligations and still having some money available. And the terms of our grant say that if we finish under basically, if we have any money left over at the end, we need to return it to the state, which is not actually what any of us really wants, neither us nor VCBB. So we're requesting of the board to give us a grant amendment to allow us to spend any excess funds essentially along the same terms and conditions as what we've done all along. So they've requested an estimate for how much money we'll have left and how many more miles and addresses we'll be passing. So my best, I mean, of course, they're not going to hold us to it because there's no more money involved, but my best estimate is that when we're done, we'll have about 500,000 left and we'll be able to serve about a little more than 150 addresses, of which nearly 100 are currently unserved or underserved. So those are primarily in the areas of our phase one, where if you recall, there's some areas where we've been waiting for a very long period of time on Green Mountain Power to do some line reconstructions. So those are some big chunks there. There's also some chunks where they're private roads that are buried, but they're not eligible under BEAD, so may as well build them under ARPA. So things like that. And then there's also a couple of other areas where we can just get a jump start on some of those BEAD middle mile scenarios that I showed you earlier.
I gotta hop out here.
Bye, Carl. I'm pretty much done anyway. I think we're going to be ending this meeting a little bit early. Thank you for coming. So with that, any questions on that? Nope. Okay. It's not really a whole lot else going on at VCBB right now. They approved a construction grant amendment for NEK Broadband, and they approved Chittenden County CUD's broadband construction grant in partnership with Consolidated. That happened on Monday. So that's about it.
Come in under budget, Ellie?
I think, I'm not sure. I think that the CCI CUDs are returning some money back, so I guess they've come in under budget as well.
Okay. Are they done?
They are done. Well, I'm not sure if they're done yet. I'm not sure where they are in terms of closeout. I heard through the grapevine today that Luck Grove has been busy not only inspecting us, but inspecting Otter Creek, but I'm not sure if that's the Go NetSpeed part or the Fidium part or both parts. So I'm not actually sure how close they are to closeout.
Okay.
Getting there. But yeah, good question. I mean, the fact that we're under budget is good. So the VCBB staff doesn't anticipate any problems from the board because they're aware that we're ahead of schedule and under budget and seem to be happy with us. So can't complain about that. So that is all that I have on the agenda. Is there any other business? Anything anyone else wants to raise? Nope. Well, if not, I can even work on that dashboard a little bit this afternoon, Sai. Okay. Well, hearing no other business, we can adjourn the meeting now. Our next meeting is in 2 weeks' time, the third Thursday, which is the 17th. All right. Well, we've lost quorum, so I guess y'all can't formally adjourn, but I'll just close the meeting. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening, and I'll speak to you at the governing board on Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Ellie. Bye-bye.